Ever wondered how your own character designs would look after a time skip? Well, you're in the right place.
We're going to be drawing a current draft of how Sano, the lead of Apple Black, will look after a time skip.
Make sure to watch to the end to see how that turned out.
We're all familiar with time skips. Some of my favorite time skips have happened in One Piece, Naruto, Gintama is underrated, Bleach, and so many others. It essentially is what it suggests. We have these characters, time passes, and then we revisit the characters and explore what changes and developments may have happened. Everyone tends to love the time skip because we all love fresh change, especially when things from a narrative standpoint or even visual standpoint have become stale. Time skips are great to freshen things up. If these are characters we love and have grown with, we want to see them grown. And sometimes the time that is skipped, whether it's a couple years, sometimes that could be done to skip the boring stuff to have a character go from maybe noob to grandmaster, without us having to witness every single thing that happened in between for them to get from point A to B. But sometimes the most interesting points within the skip itself can be revisited in flashbacks and so on. Apple Black My series will have a time skip at some point. It wouldn't be that much of a significant time jump, just a few years. But within those years, without spoiling much, there's a lot that can be snuck in there. I personally love time skips for the same reasons we all do, same reasons I've mentioned, as well as always cool to be in awe of the changes that we're witnessing. Maybe a character used to be one way and now they're a different way, and so you want to know what happened in between to get them from the previous point to where they are today. Who hurt you? Why do you have that scar on your face now? You used to be such a joyous kid. We might be in awe for funny reasons, hype reasons, shocking reasons, and maybe even predictable reasons. There's so many ways it could go, but it's always fun and fresh to see our characters in new settings, new ideas, new ideologies, new perspectives. To some degree, it's almost like seeing them in a new universe. These are some of the same reasons we like a lot of the multiverse stuff, and we are in the multiverse era today. I saw the Spider-Man movie, and all I'll say without spoiling anything is damn. You can also see Sano, if he was part of the Spider-Verse and what that would look like. Spider Sano. So the multiverse stuff is not that different, except here it is the same universe, 9 times out of 10, and it's just time passing. A lot of these changes can kind of be summed up into the who, what, where, how, and why. There could be appearance changes, scars, scarves, maybe there's some history with that, maybe there's some symbolism that has to do with it. You know, appearance changes when it comes to character design, facial expression, so much more. Sometimes you're painting a picture where there's a lot of interest into this new version of this character, where the readers are wondering, like, what happened? Sometimes allegiances change. They used to be good, now they're bad, or vice versa, or somewhere in between, or you're a spy. Maybe as we get to the time skip, you don't know, but as time goes on, that's revealed. There's so much you can do. You don't necessarily have to have the narrative just be going normally and then a time skip happen and you just kind of keep on doing what you're doing. It could come back and it's pretty much a completely different narrative or even completely different structure to how the story is being told. You can reveal new things and new information, history and flashbacks in very interesting ways, which I plan to. Sometimes time skips lead to death. Maybe the character doesn't exist anymore. They only exist now in flashbacks or in new life, where we see new versions of these characters, or these characters have changes in their lives where they maybe have kids now. Depending on your story and what you're trying to convey, there can be room for that. Behavior, maturity, rank, skill. So much change can happen in a time skip that can enhance the overall narrative of the story, keeping it fresh, but also for some maybe logical reasons where time does have to pass, and maybe most of what's happening in your story is kind of the boring stuff. You usually want to kind of skip it and get to the good stuff, and then only visit the interesting little tidbits that happen in between the larger skipped period. Time skips are great when done right. Keep things fresh, interesting, hype energy. You guys can leave in the comments what your favorite time skips have been. There's so many reasons why I'm doing a time skip and how I want to convey that, my plans for the narrative structure of things and how information is going to be conveyed to the readers, what the changes are to the characters, the designs, the behaviors, their goals, which characters are dead, sick, the list goes on. Really excited for certain changes and developments that certain characters are going to go through. I think Sano's will be a doozy that not many, if any, will see coming. Sometimes you can tell a story with this. This is an early draft of what I imagined the design would look like, but I kept playing with it. And then we had a newer version where I told more stories, even just visually. Played around with the garment that covers the Erotus arm. Here, instead of that hydrangea blue, this is more of like a wine red. Best believe there's some symbolism within the colors. How the hair is tied is different. Gauntlet on the other arm. The barefoot, or what that might represent. Wisdom, humility, the new coolness, almost like this Sano has found something. All this and more, I had a lot of fun with. To some degree, like I mentioned earlier, it's almost like a Sano from a different universe, but obviously it's the same. At least in this case, it's the same. If you guys read Apple Black Volume 1, you know within my world and even the Saturday AM world and all the other series, there is a multiverse of some sort, but that's maybe a different video. His eyebrows, also an interesting thing where you can kind of see me hint at the fact that maybe one of Sano's mentors played a role into him being the person he is today, as that eyebrows pretty similar to another character's eyebrow in the series.
Professor McHale!
Not a good look for the student body vice's record, Miss Wanmore.
So there are these little tidbits, almost Easter eggy things that you can find within just the character design, which is what I'm sharing with you guys today, and it's just a draft. Not necessarily saying this is what the final is going to look like. And I also don't want to give too much more away aside from the fact that there will be a time skip, as I want the books to really explore that more so than me just giving it away in a YouTube video. All of this kind of reminds me of the time skip art challenge I did in a previous video on this channel, where we took another character from Apple Black, Madam Naomi, and drew her in a time skip, but instead of a time skip going forward, we were drawing how she would look decades in the past. You can see me having fun with it, and you can see I opted to keep the eye patch, because from a narrative standpoint, obviously I know what happens. And given how many years in the past we're going back, I imagine she still has the eye patch on. I really like the eye patch. It's a really cool design. One of the things that I'm proud of that really sticks out with the character design for me. Here the character still keeps a lot of her very vibrant, femme fatale nature, but obviously probably more effective and younger. In this case, I was working traditionally, and if you're curious as to what tools I was using, I was probably using Copic markers and maybe also Spectrum Noir markers. Copic sketch markers to be specific, 72B or 72A. And in this video, I also drew two skips. So one where she's younger, a couple decades back, and then another where she's even younger, even more decades back. Such a fun character. A lot of people who've read the volumes, even some who aren't anime fans, are quite fond of the way the character carried herself, if you will.
Maintaining my youthful exuberance is not an easy task. Besides, how do you ever expect to get a woman rocking such a conservative style?
So we started out with a younger Sano who is more heartwarming, kind, goofy, socially awkward, unpredictably wise in certain moments. And then we end up with this. And I hold back on describing or defining who this character is, because that might be too spoilery, even for me. Though I am excited and hyped to explore this within the manga. Obviously here, using Clip Studio Paint, going with the sketch. I did do a more detailed sketch, and then ink, and then you add flats, and then adding the rest of the colors, shading, and so on. I do add a lot of the filters and adjustment layer stuff within Photoshop, so I hope visually you're enjoying what you're looking at. Now, even though we're breezing through these, if you actually want to see this footage more step by step, I have an extremely detailed, not sped up version of this, going through how I'm breaking down the drawing, my thought process, and how to use Clip Studio Paint to create exactly what I'm creating, as well as using Photoshop for all the filter and adjustment stuff in the online class I did for Class 101. For those interested, there you go. For when the time skip will happen, again, that as well I will leave for the books so you don't necessarily see it coming, or at least know exactly when it's going to happen. But my series at large, I don't expect it to run. It's not going to be like a One Piece type deal where I'm doing like a bajillion volumes and a bajillion chapters, no. I've even rewritten things to iron it out to where the whole series, maybe I'm shooting for a perfect 23 volumes if I'm lucky. So obviously a time skip will happen at some point before that. Because for 23 volumes, I'm talking 23 volumes including the time skip, where the series starts and truly finishes, excluding any potential spin-offs, sequel type whatever situations. But the story I have in mind for Apple Black, I think 23 volumes would be a chef kiss. For now, just enjoy me break it down. You see, Apple Black is a world of sorcerers. Don't worry, I've been calling mine sorcerers since way before JJK, and I got the timestamps to prove it. JK. Anyway, but in this world, The sorcerers, especially the ones that are officers recognized by Eden, which is essentially the government of this world, they all wear cloaks, and some of it is as a respect to the god of sorcery, Merlin, in this world. So to show a sign of respect, they wear the hoods on the cloaks. Some of the cloaks have abilities similar to Harry Potter with the invisibility cloak, but there are other things like an infinity cloak where the pockets are endless, intelligent cloaks, kind of like the Doctor Strange one, an invincibility cloak, and so much more that I will let the books explore. Depending on the character, they kind of wear their cloaks in a stylized way that fits their character, who they are. And this Sano has a cloak and is kind of wearing it on his waist, which I thought was really cool. The younger Sano doesn't have a cloak. Thanks for the love, keep doing all the engagement stuff. Leave in the comments any ideas you guys might have for future videos. Watch out because I'm revamping my Patreon soon. Shout out to those who still support. Shout out all those who supported in any way. By getting the books, by getting volume 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't miss volume 4. Don't miss those volumes, guys. Links in the description. Check out more videos like this one where we're designing a character from scratch using character design tips from pretty much everybody on YouTube. See you there. It's White Manga, and I'm Audi 9000.